Hello, Mark Satawa, Principal Attorney at Satawa Law, PLLC. And the topic for today's video blog is confessions. More specifically, do people really confess to things that they didn't do? Folks, this is one of the age-old questions from the criminal justice system. We all think if I was charged with something as awful as killing my wife, robbing my neighbor, sexually assaulting my friend, or molesting my child, I would stand on the highest mountain and scream, I didn't do it. And if the police interviewed me about having done those things, I would say, no, I didn't. I'm innocent. And we would never allow the police to get away with making an accusation like that without vigorously and violently maintaining and protesting our innocence. Unfortunately, the stats say otherwise. Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, in creating the Innocence Project in Cardozo Law School in New York, one of the most telling and one of the most scary things that came out of their work is that in close to 1 out of 3, about 30 to 40% of cases where someone has been wrongfully convicted and exonerated through the use of DNA, there was a confession, a false confession. Why does it happen? How does it happen? That's tough to say, but typically the answer is this. The person giving the false confession is put in a position of having to choose between the less of the two evils and sees the false confession as being the better of the two. The first and most famous example, and it's talked about a lot, were the Salem witch trials. Remember, folks, what those people in Salem, Massachusetts were truly being accused of were being witches. Now, in 1600, that means that they were accused of being possessed by the devil or a demon from the underworld that was allowing them to conduct magic and witchcraft. And how do these accusations come? Typically, someone would be accused of a witch, and they would be given a choice. The choice would be confess to being a witch and tell us who helped you to become a witch, or we're going to kill you by hanging you from a tree or crushing you with heavy rocks. Believe it or not, and probably shocking to lots of us, most people, when confronted with that choice, decided that they would tell the people investigating this that they were in fact a witch, name at least one other person, and therefore be alive tomorrow. Now that can't possibly happen in 2019, right? I mean, you're talking 400 years ago. I mean, that's just, it's not reality anymore. The fact of the matter is that it certainly remains true today. As you may have seen in other parts of this video blog and website, there is something called the ReadInBow Method of interrogation, or the Read method of interrogation. This is an interrogation method where police officers are taught how to do exactly this, which is to get someone to confess. The real danger of this method is that it doesn't differentiate between getting guilty people to confess and innocent people to confess, because it relies upon breaking down the defenses and the psychological will of the suspect to the point where they think they don't have a choice. Someone's dead. Well, I didn't do it. Yeah, I know you did it, but we saw your fingerprints there. Yeah, well, of course my fingerprints are there. I live there. Yeah, but somebody saw you leaving the house. Well, of course I left the house. I live at the house and I went to work. Yeah, but someone heard you having an argument the day before. Every time the suspect gives an explanation, the police cut it off and torpedo it. They continue putting roadblocks in every method of escape they can until the suspect believes there's no other escape possible. In other words, they make that suspect believe that there's no way out from the mounting evidence against them. They are allowed to lie. In fact, they almost always do. They are allowed to misrepresent what evidence they have against you. They are allowed to tell you things that that they have done in the investigation that they haven't done. Are your fingerprints there? Well, they may or may not be, but they're allowed to tell you that they are. Did someone else confess and label you as a co-conspirator? Even if it's not true, they're going to tell you that. Did you take a police polygraph and pass? Well, they're going to tell you you failed. Are you going to, did you have a good marriage where you haven't fought? They're going to tell you that they have 7 eyewitnesses who said that they heard you throw a vase at your spouse the night before in a violent argument. It doesn't matter. Their goal isn't to prove their case to you. It's to break you down, to break down your defenses and your will, psychologically break you down into the point where you have no other choice. And then at that point, they give you a lifeline. At that point, they say, hey, you know what? We know you didn't mean to kill him. It was an accident. We know you didn't mean to kill him. It was just a heat of the moment thing. We know you didn't plan to kill him. It just happened. Those are the techniques. And it is scientifically, psychologically studied and put together to have the exact effect it has, which is to get confessions. Again, the ultimate problem with that is that the confessions they get, we know through DNA exonerations, through other methods of study and research, they're not always true. They're not always the confessions of a guilty person. They're frequently, and in case of the Innocence Project, 1 in 3 times, they are the product of an innocent person confessing to something that they didn't do. So, what have we learned? What we know is this. People can and do falsely commit to crimes that they didn't commit. After all, hundreds of people in Salem, Massachusetts admitted to being witches. Were those people really possessed by the devil or some demonic spirit? Or did they just not want to get hung from a tree and break their neck? I guess you can decide that. But in the meantime, if you or a loved one is faced with a crime where there's a confession, but they're looking at you and they say, Mom, Dad, husband, wife, brother, sister, child, daughter, son, I know the police are saying I confessed, but I didn't do this. You need a lawyer, and you need a good lawyer, and you need a good lawyer who has experience and expertise in handling this very, very specialized, very, very nuanced area of false confessions. I hope you found today's video blog informative. I am Mark Satawa, Principal Attorney at Satawa Law, and as always, Satawa Law is defending your rights, protecting your future. Thank you.